Food and Wine Insider is a weekly look at a $1.5 trillion industry touching every American. Devoted to the business of purveying food and decanting wines, Food and Wine Radio is a unique program highlighting not food recipes or wine vintages, but how to make a profit while satisfying America's palates. In this competitive but highly rewarding sector, many men and women have made profits while fulfilling a dream. Food and Wine Insider is all about better managing any business involving food and wine. Each week, your co-hosts sit down with successful restaurateurs, food mavens, winery vintners, store owners, food suppliers, and other leaders in the worldwide industry that centers on foodstuff and wine. In frank give-and-take sessions, guests and panelists talk about the business of bringing healthy and pleasurable foods and wines to others. Your Food and Wine Radio host are Ann Daw, former president of the Specialty Food Association and a longtime food executive who has held senior positions both here and abroad with Kraft Foods and Philip Morris. Don Mazzella, a nationally known business commentator. On each show, they invite leaders of the world's culinary and wine industries to share the secrets of their success. Visit us at foodandwineinsider.com.
Andor's guest is Gary Fisch, CEO and founder of Gary's Wine and Marketplace. It's in New Jersey, but he sells throughout the country. And this year, Gary's Wine and Marketplace celebrates its 30th anniversary. And in addition, is opening a fifth store location in Gloucester, New Jersey. Gary's e-commerce site, garyswine.com, continues to grow and now ships throughout the United States. Gary, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You first, Dan. It's all yours.
No worries. Thank you. Thanks, Gary, for being on the show today. By the way, Gary was named Retailer of the Year in 2014 by MarketWatch. And over several years, Gary's Wine and Marketplace has been both voted Best Wine Shop by New Jersey Monthly and Wayne Magazine's Reader's Poll. Gary, this is such a great story. I wonder if you could talk about how Gary's Wine and Marketplace has evolved over the past 30 years.
Wow. In under 30 minutes or in 2 hours? No, it's funny. When we opened up our first store in Madison, New Jersey in 1987, the world in New Jersey was completely different. Box wines were big, Franzia, Taylor, Inglenook, Carla Rossi, Paul Masson. It was Magnums, 175s of cheap vodka and cheap scotch. And over time, as we've grown, the wine business has boomed. It's gone from people drinking, budget wines, budget beer, budget liquor, to handcrafted everything. We have local distilleries in New Jersey we're buying products from. Kentucky bourbons are on a rise. Handcrafted beers are growing. So the market has changed dramatically. And if you go back and think, we were 1,200 square feet in our first store. And then when we moved to 13,000 feet a mile away, and we added charcuterie and cheeses and, a whole lifestyle. And so that has changed dramatically for us.
It's interesting. It seems like you've changed along with the trends, because I think your store was originally called Shoppers Discount Liquor Wine Warehouse. Tell us about the brand change. I'm sure it's an interesting story.
It's very funny because when we bought the business in '87, it was called Shoppers Discount Liquor. And it was in a strip center, and it was a tiny store in a center. And as we were trying to grow, we wanted to give the impression of being bigger. So we added Wine Warehouse to the logo. Then we moved into a big spot, and now we were Shoppers Discount Liquor Wine Warehouse of Madison, New Jersey. And then we opened a new store in Livingston. It was called Madison Shoppers Discount Liquor Wine Warehouse. And it got confusing, so we actually brought a facilitator in and brought about 20 customers of ours. And we talked about the name change, and we were spending a lot of money at that point in newspaper advertising. Every week we're in the Star Ledger and all the local newspapers. And so the facilitator went around the room and said, "What's the name of the store?" Everybody had a different name. Nobody knew the name of the store. So he said, "So what do you tell people you're doing on Saturday morning?" "Oh, I'm going to go have Gary pick wine out. Gary does a great job. He always picks out my wines. He knows everything I like." So he wrote Gary on the board. And the discussion became Gary's what? And that's how the whole, we were just getting into cheese and food products. So we decided Gary's Wine and Marketplace. So it was a complete shift, and that happened around 1999, early 2000.
Oh, fantastic. Now, you decided to add a marketplace in your stores versus just selling wine and spirits. Why did you include a marketplace?
Because at that point, it was, in around 1992, 94, I was starting to see. I had gotten back from Italy when we opened, about a month before we were opening the bigger Madison location. And in Italy, it was all about food and wine. You go into these beautiful little marketplaces, and they have cheese hanging up, and they've cut cheese for you, and charcuterie, and it's really a market experience. And as I said in the beginning, when we were small, I wanted to pretend to be big. Now that we were bigger, I still wanted the smaller marketplace feel. So I thought that adding cheese and food to our selection made us not just a big box store. My fear at that point is, if we're just a big box store and the laws change or Costco comes in or something like that, I will be the same as them. And I'll lose. This way I'll have a competitive advantage. And I felt like the market was going that way. The consumers wanted it.
Wonderful. You refer to your customers as guests. What does that mean to you?
It means I treat them like they're coming into my house. I go into stores and I'm horrified, whether it's a grocery store or a clothing store, at the sales approach. That you could tell they're trying to sell me something. When you come to us, you're our guest. We're going to talk about what you want. It's conversational buying. The more we know about what you like, what you don't like, the easier it is for us to help you create the experience that you want, whether it's just buying a bottle of wine for Tuesday night dinner or if it's doing 4 or 5 different wines to have for a special weekend event that you're hosting.
Fabulous. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about what's changed in the desires of your guests. How are new guests different from the ones who've been coming to your store probably for a generation, I would think?
Yeah, we now have the kids and the grandchildren. I remember a customer coming in when she turned 21, and her father had called me up to set her up to make me call the police to complain about that she was underage trying to fake it. And now she comes in with her kids. And so you see this, and it's very exciting from that point of view. But again, when we first started, a shopping cart would be a 30-pack of Budweiser, a 175 of Smirnoff, and 175 of Dewar's, and a couple of bottles of wine. Now they're coming in, and it's a 750 of a cool new gin that we have, 2 6-packs of a beer that I didn't know existed 2 weeks ago, and 3 or 4 interesting bottles of wine. And that same guest, and then they'll throw some cheese in. And the same guest will come back 2 weeks later, and instead of gin this time, they throw a bottle of bourbon in their cart. And instead of red wine, they'll have a bottle of white wine in their cart. So it's gotten to be less, solid cases of the same old, and more experimental, and sampling and seeing what's out there and new. And it's pretty exciting for us, and it causes us to stay on the top of our game at all times.
Oh, absolutely. In specialty, I've noticed many new products in the bitters and cocktail mixes and those types of things. How has this impacted the spirits business, do you think?
Well, the whole, I still call them bartenders, and I think people get mad at me. The whole mixology craft, you go into a bar now, and there's, it's not a gin and tonic, it's a special gin with a homemade tonic, and so the that side of it, the on-premise side really has caused people to want to try on their own to do it at home. So we've added a lot more ingredients for your spirits. And it's also enlightened people that they should be looking at quality spirits. So again, instead of a handle, a 175 of the cheapest you could find, they're looking for a smaller size of something of quality to mix with quality ingredients.
Awesome. And I'd love to shift a little bit to the craft beer category. And I'm sure our listeners would love to hear your perspective on craft beers and where do you think it's going?
Craft is very interesting, and the term craft is frightening in of itself, because you still have a lot of the big companies are in the craft business. But what craft has done, first off, it's allowed experimentation, which is good, but it's also forcing us to be really dialed in and paying attention to that category, because you don't want stale beer. You don't want beer sitting on your shelves. So each store that we have has a beer manager that really is focused on bringing in the right products, tasting the beers, making sure our product mix is always changing, always fresh, always lively, because you can really get caught in a position of having, the wrong seasonal products, or not having the freshness. And that's why I think you have to trust your local merchant, whoever you go to, that they're selling through the product.
And I think the shelf life issue is a really important one. And not only marketing the craft beers, but how do you manage the shelf life in your stores to be sure that your guests are getting the freshest product possible?
We work with the distributors to make sure that they're shipping it, that they're not giving us old product. Two is we really manage our inventory very well. And we're always, we have beer tastings every Thursday, so we're always allowing people to taste new beers. We're always looking at it to make sure, and if it's not selling, we reduce the price, or we do whatever we have to. But at the end of the day, I think we've done a great job bringing in the correct product, because that's where it starts, right? It starts with buying correctly. So bringing in what the consumers are looking for, what people want to taste and have, that weekend or that night for dinner.
Want to know more about health savings accounts for your company or yourself? Go to 2hsa.com and get a free employer's primer. Health savings accounts are a cost-effective way of offering health care benefits to your employees and yourself. HSAs build retirement funds for your employees, improve morale, and reduce your health care benefit cost. For a free employer guide to HSAs, go to 2hsa.com. That's 2hsa.com. You are listening to Ann Daw and Don Mazzella, and the program is Food and Wine Insider. If you have a question or know someone you think our listeners should hear, contact us at foodandwineinsider.com. Remember, our programs are heard every Wednesday and Saturday on this station via amfm247.com or on iHeartRadio, as well as Roku television. You can listen to past shows at foodandwineinsider.com.
In your sense, Gary, making a little shift to competition, where does your biggest competition come from, and how has that changed over time?
Again, like everything, dramatically. It used to be our biggest competition was the local grocery store or the local wine shop or liquor store a mile away, 3 miles away, 5 miles away. Now the competition shift is globally. You have Whole Foods has some liquor departments in New Jersey. Amazon buys Whole Foods. What does that look like in the future? Wine direct, wineries are shipping more wine direct around the country than ever before. Not at cheaper prices than retail, but they are shipping around the country. So that's become our competition. And it's funny because they're really our partners. Some of my best friends are Napa Valley vintners, and they sell to me, and they also sell direct to consumer. So it's an interesting dichotomy that we're living in. So 10 years ago, I would have said I would have given you 5 names of local liquor stores that are our competition. Now it's much more of a national competitive scene.
But I would think your personal touch is what sort of keeps people coming back to Gary's Wine and Marketplace. Your name's on so people want to see you.
Well, and that's the challenge in going from 1 store to 3 to 5. And I spend a lot of time driving from store to store to make sure, I'm there. And not only am I there, but when I'm not, the people that work for us have been trained properly, and we taste a lot of wine. We joke that we taste so much bad wine, so you don't have to. We do a lot of tastings every day that I'm involved in, and then what the stores receive are products that I have helped select. So we truly stand behind everything we bring in our stores, and that's an important point of difference from us and either the local corner liquor store or the national, chain or the direct. We're really involved in the purchasing and selling of the product, and we're in tune with what the local consumer is looking for.
You mentioned the wineries selling directly. Certainly a lot more things going on, online business and so on. How important is e-business to Gary's Wine and Marketplace, and how do you see that evolving?
Online is our 4th store currently, our 5th store currently, and it will become our 6th store after our closed store opens in a few weeks. The challenge with online is the field keeps changing. As the laws change, it seems to be changing to protect or open up the door more for wineries. But retailers seem to be caught in this no man's land. So in some states, in many states, the wineries can ship directly in, but the retailers can't. And so that's caused a challenge. The whole mobile device world has caused an opening of pricing, so you can see anybody's price anywhere. And we're very, New Jersey, we're aggressive, competitive, and we run our retail businesses that way. So our prices are very good. So nationally, people want to buy from us, and it's just making sure that we're shipping to the right states that we're allowed to, because that's always changing.
Great. I'm sure, like in any business, and given that you've been in business such a long time, that there have been ebbs and flows. Could you share a story about a decision that maybe didn't turn out so well, but it was a really great learning moment for you?
Okay, I'm coming up with one. Yes, we love the basket business. We do a lot of gift baskets during the holidays. Actually, we do a lot of gift baskets throughout the course of the year. And we knew we wanted to be in the business, but we knew we weren't very good at it and not very efficient. So we bought a basket company, and this is about 15 years ago. 2 women, 2 sisters, very creative, very energetic, very bright, and they were doing it like in their garage kind of thing. And they created beautiful baskets, had a good list, and so we bought them, and thinking that you could take somebody that's doing 100 baskets for Christmas and have them do 5,000, and it didn't translate, So what we learned is, if you want to be in it, we've got to research and know it ourselves. 2, that some people, because they can do the product in the world of 10 baskets in this case, it's not always scalable. And in that business model, the way they did it, it was not scalable, and we needed to scale it.
In the specialty business, that's a core thing, is scalability. Being able to repeat what you do and the concentration where you do it, and be able to take it out. So I think that's a really wonderful story and a wonderful learning experience. On the flip side, what would you say has been your proudest moment?
Well, I'm going to do it as 2 parts. One is the Market Watch Leader of the Year award in 2014. because that, Market Watch is the publication for the wine and spirits industry. And Marvin Shanken and Shanken Communications has done such great job promoting our beverage alcohol industry. And to be honored by that publication in front of all of our peers, it was any major retail group was there, as well as all the importers and wholesalers. So that was a very, very proud moment for me. From a second part to that, we have a private label called Go Figure. My name is Gary Fisch, Go Figure. So we believe in private labels. We think it's an important part of the growth of our business, but we're doing it honestly. You go into a lot of stores and there's private label, but you don't know what they are. And so we created an honest private label program. And with our great partnerships in predominantly Napa, but in also Willamette Valley, Oregon, Washington State, we've come up with some great wines that way over-deliver. And the response we get from our guests is sensational. And that makes me extremely proud.
Oh, that's terrific. As you think about the next years, what do you think are the coming trends and what you're going to need to do to sort of stay ahead?
The trend is for consolidation and nationalization. So consolidation means the wholesalers and suppliers are becoming fewer and fewer, which means we have less people that control more of our product that we buy. And that makes it harder to deal with them, or potentially makes it harder to deal with them. And nationalization is, the opening up of the market. Right now we have the 2 license limitation in New Jersey. So it's family, it's me, my wife, and my kids that are involved in the business. But Costco, as a publicly held company, only has 2 licenses in New Jersey. If that changes and national retailers start coming into New Jersey in a greater way, it really takes a bigger chunk out of the market share. So those are the 2 big things that I see as negatively impacting our business in the future.
And I hate this has been such an illuminating time, but I'm afraid we're going to have to say thank you to our guest, Gary Fisch of Gary's Wine and Marketplace, because and thank him. Gary, your website again?
Gary'sWine.com. So it's GarySWine.com. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks.
All right, take care. Bye now.
Dan Perkins here from Recalculating.biz with your featured book. I want to tell you about a recent interview I had with Bob Bethel, a turnaround specialist with lots of success in small business. Bob's new book is Strengthen Your Business, Fail-Proof Strategies for Small Business. He tells us of his life successes and failures that have made him and his clients so successful. Over the years, Bob has brought 77 companies back from the brink and changed them into thriving, profitable businesses. His energy is amazing, and at 74, he proves that you can still have a great deal to give others if you just try. His suggestions are easy to understand and very helpful. One insight struck me was that most companies do not have a plan. The old Chinese proverb says, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there, is true today. Bob Bethel's book, Strengthen Your Business, can be found at Amazon.com or can be ordered at your local bookstore. This has been Dan Perkins with your Recalculating.biz featured book.
Want to know more about health savings accounts for your company or yourself? Go to 2hsa.com and get a free employer's primer. Health savings accounts are a cost-effective way of offering health care benefits to your employees and yourself. HSAs build retirement funds for your employees, improve morale, and reduce your health care benefit cost. For a free employer guide to HSAs, go to 2hsa.com. That's 2hsa.com. You are listening to Ann Daw and Don Mazzella, and the program is Food and Wine Insider. If you have a question or know someone you think our listeners should hear, contact us at foodandwineinsider.com. Remember, our programs are heard every Wednesday and Saturday on this station via amfm247.com or on iHeartRadio, as well as Roku television. You can listen to past shows at foodandwineinsider.com.
Finding and paying for the best cooking and dining equipment is often the key to success for many establishments. Here to talk about how best to identify and obtain important elements of any restaurant is Vernon Tirey, president of LeaseQ. Vernon, thank you for being with us, and Ann, it's all yours.
Okay, great. Good morning, Vernon. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Don. Good morning, Ann. Very happy to be here.
I believe you started LeaseQ in 2011. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about the need that you saw that's now being fulfilled by LeaseQ?
Yes, for companies that need equipment, and that includes restaurant and food service organizations that need food and beverage equipment. There are three big challenges. The first is, where do I go to get the best financing? So shopping for financing has always been difficult. You have to deal with a sales rep, fill out an application, they make a hard credit pull on your personal credit and it gets dinged, and then you have to wait typically anywhere from 12 to 48 hours just to get a rate back from them to understand what your monthly payment obligations would be. And the second problem is that equipment sellers have all different kinds of customers, from A to D credit, and there is no lender that supports all dollar sizes, all customer types, and all types of equipment. So consequently, you need lots of different finance partners to find competitive financing for your customers. And then the third problem is just making it easy and fast to get the money in your hands to get funded. So we created LeaseQ to make it easy to shop, to serve all customers, and to basically create a fast and easy funding experience. And today we provide instant quotes. So if you come to our website or you buy equipment from one of our equipment selling partners, then they can provide quotes on the spot. It takes about 60 seconds to fill out an application. We support all credit classes from A to D, which I can talk more about if you like. And we're working every day with the 175 lenders that we currently have partnered with to speed up and make easy that process of financing.
That's terrific. About leasing in general, do you see leasing as growing, and why is it growing? Because we're not seeing as much purchasing necessarily, but the notion of leasing. If you could talk a little bit about the trends in this particular industry, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, well, what's happening is that equipment financing, used to be primarily leasing, and it now today has changed somewhat in the last 4 or 5 years to include both leases and loans. So financing to purchase or financing to lease, both of those options are generally available. We support both, and it really depends on the objectives of the business. The tax laws are changing. They're in the process of changing, and so a lot of the tax breaks are still available, but they're not as readily available as they once were. So the advantages of leasing actually has diminished somewhat. The key thing for us is to make sure that restaurateurs and food service establishments have the equipment that they need, when they need it. And there are lots of advantages to financing or leasing the equipment versus purchasing the equipment, that primarily has to do with cash requirements for your business. The good news with regards to equipment is that it generates revenue for you. So typically the revenue generated from a piece of equipment will service the debt on that equipment and leave the business owner with cash to address a number of other issues, especially things like paying employees or keeping that money available for a rainy day.
In an analogous business, it may not be similar to the restaurant business, but in specialty foods, many new businesses start out with contract packers. It lowers their risk of entry, so they do not manufacture themselves. They have someone else manufacture it. How, in the restaurant business, because obviously it's bricks and mortar and location and so on, how does LeaseQ do that for folks who want to get into the restaurant business?
Yes, and by the way, we also support food packaging. So sometimes you'll send, you'll have a food packager process your orders for you, and then you get ready to bring that capability in-house because you've reached a critical mass, and it's more cost-effective to do that. So we oftentimes will finance that food packaging equipment as well. Typically what happens is if you're a startup business, it is impossible to get a loan from a bank. You have to have A++ credit to get a loan from your local bank. But the equipment finance industry has been supporting startup businesses for over 50 years, and the industry, there are about 600 lenders in the industry, and a number of them specialize in startups. And with regards to restaurants, there, as you can imagine, there are lots and lots of startups. So the dollar amounts are somewhat limited, typically between $50,000 and $150,000. But if you're wealthy and have lots of assets, you can borrow or lease up to $350,000, upwards of $4 million. We financed this last week $3.7 million startup in Houston, Texas. So it can be done, but it is challenging and takes some special insight in order to get financing for a startup.
So I'm going to see if we can provide a bit of an example for our listeners. I'm a new restaurateur. I'm very passionate about my idea for a small restaurant. I'm going to serve lunch and dinner in a particular ethnic style, and I plan to rent space in a high traffic area, but I don't know where to start with having the proper equipment. How does LeaseQ help me?
Well, if you aren't familiar with, your best equipment options, we would refer you to one of our many partners. We work with the largest equipment distributors in the country. Trimark is the largest. Other companies might include Hockenberg's or Hotel Restaurant Supply or Thompson Little. And we've implemented our technology into those companies, just as you would go into a car dealership and they would sit down with you and help you put a loan in place or a lease in place for your car. We do the same thing. We provide all that technology infrastructure so that the equipment seller can help you do that in their store. And these stores have thousands of SKUs, and they have experts in the store that will sit down with you and listen to what you're trying to accomplish and then help you put that in place.
Okay, that's fantastic. Because I am certain you've been around so many folks who've gotten into our business, and you realize the turnover that's involved in restaurants. What do you think are the common mistakes new restaurateurs make that can be avoided to limit their risks and try to help them be as successful as possible?
Well, on the financial end, it's don't spend your cash if you don't have to. If you've got three, big expenses, and actually four. You've got your real estate, and you've got employee expenses. You have food supplies, and then you have equipment. And the equipment is a capital expense. It has value. It's an asset, and so that asset is, you can borrow against that asset. So why dump all your cash? Because you have to go buy groceries if you're serving food, and you have to pay your employees, and you have to pay your rent. So your equipment, you don't have to pay for that right up front, and that's a typical mistake where people save up and they say, okay, now I can afford all of the front of the store and put all my tables and chairs in place and decorate it, and I've put in place. But you should preserve your cash on those items because they actually have value. Even if you were to close your doors, they still have value.
I think that is such great advice because any business, even especially food business, it's all about the cash flow. It's about having sufficient cash to keep running the business, and having put all the cash into something and then not being able to make the money that gives you the ability to continue to grow, because you need to keep investing back into the business. I know you mentioned earlier that you essentially accept all levels of credit worthiness of the folks that come to you for a lease. Can you talk a little bit about what the typical terms are for leasing of equipment so that people understand what are they getting involved in when they are going to lease equipment? How long are the terms? What typically are the interest rates and things like that? Just some of the things, the core things, specific, but maybe in general terms, so that our listeners understand what's involved.
Sure, those are great questions, Ann. So if you have stellar credit and you have lots of assets and you're starting a restaurant, then you might be able to go to your bank and get a loan. It would be a personal loan, an unsecured personal loan, or it might be a secured loan where you have to provide a personal guarantee. And that would always be the best option that you have available to you. And you'll typically pay whatever terms your bank can get for you. They typically won't loan you a lot of money, but unless there's real estate involved. And so you're going to pay typically 4 to 6, maybe 7% if you have this stellar credit. But if you don't have stellar credit, then you're not going to be able to get a loan at a bank, and you're going to have to go to a specialty lender. And even inside of banks, the departments, the specialty lending departments, they're going to charge higher interest. So, customers that go and buy a house and are paying, 5% or 4.5% APR on that for the mortgage, are bitterly disappointed when all of a sudden they're having to pay twice that for an equipment finance loan or for a commercial loan. So, that is, step one, the biggest difference. Now, if you have B credit or C credit or D credit, in other words, if your credit is under 700 FICO, just as an example, and there are lots of different ways that lenders look at this, but I'm just keeping it simple for your listeners. If your FICO is under 700, then you're going to need a specialty lender, and the rates are typically going to start around 6% and kind of edge up to 12%, and then in C and D it drops precipitously because the risk drops precipitously. So, what we recommend is you can get the terms are generally 24 to 60 months, so 2 to 5 years. Take out a 5-year lease or loan and get those rates down so that your revenue can easily cover any costs that you're incurring monthly. And then immediately when you buy when you buy equipment after that, your credit's going to go shooting way up, and then you're going to be able to drop those rates pretty aggressively. In equipment financing, you really need to look at the contract. We'll help you do that at LeaseQ, but the terms, oftentimes there are penalties for early for prepayment, but there are actually a handful of companies out there that where there are no penalties for prepayment. So if that's a requirement, then you would need to let us know right up front, and we can help you with that.
Dan Perkins here from Recalculating.biz with your featured book. I want to tell you about a recent interview I had with Bob Bethel, a turnaround specialist with lots of success in small business. Bob's new book is Strengthen Your Business, Fail-Proof Strategies for Small Business. He tells us of his life successes and failures that have made him and his clients so successful. Over the years, Bob has brought 77 companies back from the brink and changed them into thriving, profitable businesses. His energy is amazing, and at 74, he proves that you can still have a great deal to give others if you just try. His suggestions are easy to understand and very helpful. One insight struck me was that most companies do not have a plan. The old Chinese proverb says, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there, is true today. Bob Bethel's book, Strengthen Your Business, can be found at Amazon.com or can be ordered at your local bookstore. This has been Dan Perkins with your Recalculating.biz featured book.
You are listening to Ann Daw and Don Mazzella, and the program is Food and Wine Insider. If you have a question or know someone you think our listeners should hear, contact us at foodandwineinsider.com. Remember, our programs are heard every Wednesday and Saturday on this station via amfm247.com or on iHeartRadio, as well as Roku Television. You can listen to past shows at foodandwineinsider.com.
Wow, that was a lot of really, really great advice. I wonder if you could relate for the listeners a success story, either in a person or an organization you helped, and what that meant to the growth of their business. If you could, if there's any story out there that you could share as a great lesson learned on a positive note, that would be awesome.
Sure. We work with lots of small companies. We work with big companies too, but we've got a team that is really fighting for the small business owner. And so a common story for us is that, there may be a husband and wife team and one of them passes away, or there's a partnership where the partnership severs, and then one owner is left holding the bag, and they don't, and the business, that you kind of take your eye off the ball, and so what we'll do is, and they need, financing to kind of right the ship, or to pay off that partner, or to replace a critical piece of equipment like air conditioning, or a stove, or a walk-in freezer. These emergencies happen all the time, and that's when our team jumps into action and shows them what all the options are so that they can avert closing that business. It's not uncommon for us to have someone come in that just has terrible credit because they've mismanaged paying their bills on time, and then what we'll do is we'll walk them through how you can go and find a co-sponsor and immediately pump up your credit to get that last critical piece of equipment, or how to negotiate a discount with your local distributor. So helping the small business person, and there's so many crazy stories. I can't even start to share some of them because they're not fit for common consumption. But it's really problem solving, and you'll find that there are great lenders out there in equipment financing that are eager to help you. You know, the best story I guess that I have is we had a Korean couple that in the Atlanta area that had opened a meat shop, and the husband had 20 years experience working as a butcher in an Asian grocery store, a large Asian grocery store that most people would have heard of, but his English was not very good. They had a daughter going to Georgia Tech, and we had to work really with her to get most of the applications done. We had submitted it to a well-known equipment finance company, and they refused to fund the deal because this couple could not speak English, and they considered the inability to speak English as a credit risk. Well, that in many ways is really not American. And so we called another equipment finance company that's based on the West Coast, that in the Seattle area, and they jumped into action, and within really an hour had a translator on the phone at the same time, closed the deal, and funded that couple in a matter of hours. So there are a lot of companies out there that are eager to help, all kinds of startups, and it's real joy working with those problem solvers every day.
Well, Vernon, I think that's a fabulous story, and I thank you for sharing that. I would imagine that you take risks as well. Any story in terms of what you've learned over time are things that have become watch-outs for you in terms of maybe not moving forward with someone for any particular reasons. It would be kind of interesting for people to hear about that as well.
Well, yes, thank you for asking that question, Ann. Do not lie on an application. When we catch somebody misrepresenting information that they should have easily available to them, then immediately they become an unacceptable risk. And there are lots of people that make mistakes, and that's different. But if you have multiple owners for a business, and you're going to have to list all those owners. We have the technology to identify who they are, so you can't hide them. So some people think that they can game the system when they're applying for a loan, and maybe you can do that for these new fintech companies that are available. But in equipment financing, these companies have been around for over 50 years, and they really know what they're doing, and they're really trying to help the small business operator. And unlike a lot of other lenders, they do specialize in all credit classes. So honesty really is the best policy, and that's the advice I would give. Even if you have bad credit, just lay it out there right from the beginning, and we will go to work for you if it's possible. But you're not going to be able to sneak one by. The lenders, they are really terrific at sniffing this out because they've been doing it a long time.
That's great. So being authentic and representing yourself properly, because you probably can smell out a fake. Go ahead.
Well, not only that, but they'll work even harder for you. You'd be surprised.
Yeah. That's really terrific. What are your plans for the future? Are there other areas of leasing that could benefit from your expertise?
Oh yeah, we're working on other kinds of financing solutions, but our primary focus today, because we're still a startup, is equipment financing. So we work in all equipment classes. There are about 30 different kinds you can imagine. There's medical equipment and construction equipment and trucks, but our food and beverage group is the oldest group and the most mature. And because there was just a huge need in the marketplace that we were able to step into immediately. And currently our focus is trying to create what we call one-day funding, so that you can apply for a loan and actually get that loan fulfilled in 24 hours. That is a huge jump for the industry, which is not highly automated, so we're spending a lot of time automating these processes and working with lenders to speed up the process. And we're making pretty good progress, but there's a lot of work still to do. So that's what we have in our immediate future. Ultimately, our goal is to create and deliver 1-hour funding, so that you can sit down at your computer, you can fill out an application in 60 seconds, which you can do today. You get your instant quotes. You pick the lender that you want, you complete the contract right there on the spot, and then you submit it, and the money comes, basically is pushed into your bank account in a matter of minutes. And the technology is available today. It's just bringing the lenders along so that they feel comfortable supporting that kind of process.
Terrific. Now, I realize you're in the leasing business, but you must be seeing sort of trends in what's happening with equipment. Are there anything you'd like to share in terms of how equipment is actually changing? How's it evolving? What's kind of the new equipment that's sort of showing up on the scene that you're noting in this particular industry?
Oh, I'm actually not the best person to talk to about that, because there are literally thousands and thousands of SKUs, and we see distributors getting more aggressive and prices coming down for items such as walk-in freezers and for dishwashers, But I do have a thought with regards to financing that I'd like to address, especially for your restaurateurs. There is a type of financing called merchant cash advance, and the way that it works is that that they will actually pull the money out of your merchant account because your customers are coming in and using their credit cards. And they'll give you a loan, and these are typically short-term loans, anywhere from 30 days to 90 days, upwards of a year. And I just would and what happens is these restaurants are desperate for cash, and so what they do is go to a merchant cash advance company, and they hear, this is 1% simple interest or 2% simple interest, or it's a 6% simple interest. Well, what that means is it's 6% a month, all right? And so obviously if you multiply that times 12, the interest rate is, sometimes as high as 125% on an annual basis. So, we warn, in extreme cases, we will provide merchant cash advance solutions to a restaurateur, but we find that they're not, they cannot be effective long term. That generally what happens is that restaurants that take out merchant cash advance loan will oftentimes have to, in 2.5 or 3 months, take out a second loan in order to service the debt or to close that loan. And then of course, if you get caught in a situation where you've got 2 or 3 or 4 of these loans, in place at the same time, there is no way to recover. So we strongly discourage this type of lending, or borrowing, I should say, on behalf of restaurants, because it's very difficult to dig yourself out of that hole.
Vernon, I think you probably just provided the best advice possible to people, because I've seen many times on TV where, you can get money and it'll come to you quickly, and you have to pay attention to the small print and the things that are said very quickly, and you realize, oh my goodness, this is like a 20% interest rate. This is 120% interest rate. I think there's so much to really be understood about, this is what you need to pay us minimally, but in effect, you're really paying a lot of interest, and that means that you're always chasing, trying to pay off your debts. I don't know if there's any last thoughts you have on how people should think about debt, how they should think about, when they're borrowing money, just sort of maybe your top 3 best pieces of advice.
Yeah, so my best advice regarding this is the first loan, when you're starting a business, the first loan you should take out is a loan for your equipment, because it is the last loan that you're going to default on. No equipment, no revenue, no business. So let your equipment work hard for you. Let your financing work even harder for you, and don't, be very careful if you're taking financing out on any other part of your business, because your food stuff is perishable. Your employees, there are lots of requirements around that, so you need your cash for that. You should not be borrowing for that. If you are, then there's something. Your business model is in jeopardy of working. So think of equipment financing as your friend, and it will take very good care of you, so that you can focus on managing your cash for the rest of the business.
Well, that is terrific, Vernon, and I really appreciate your time today, and the whole world of leasing and really understanding it and giving people good perspective on how to do it and how to do it well, and not, dig yourself a hole as you start out in a business, because what you want to be is successful, have good cash flow, be able to pay your employees properly, delight your guests, and be able to be successful and enjoy something that you really love doing. So I very much appreciate your time today. I certainly was enlightened to understand this business as well, and very much appreciate your time.
And it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
We've been talking with Vernon Tirey. He's president of LeaseQ. Vernon, before you go, can you give our listeners your website?
Sure. It's LeaseQ, LeaseQ.com.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Don.
Want to know more about health savings accounts for your company or yourself? Go to 2hsa.com and get a free employer's primer. Health savings accounts are a cost-effective way of offering health care benefits to your employees and yourself. HSAs build retirement funds for your employees, improve morale, and reduce your health care benefit cost. For a free employer guide to HSAs, go to 2hsa.com. That's 2hsa.com.
Thank you so much for being with us.
You've been listening to Food and Wine Insider with Ann Daw and Don Mazzella. Want to join us on a future show? Contact us at foodandwineinsider.com. Until next time, have a passion for food, wine, and profits, and think of our program, Food and Wine Insider. Food and Wine Insider is a weekly look at a $1.5 trillion industry touching every American. Devoted to the business of purveying food and decanting wines, Food and Wine Radio is a unique program highlighting not food recipes or wine vintages, but how to make a profit while satisfying America's palates.